the searchers I seek, the wisdom that they speak, the lessons that they teach, just a searcher like. Who'd have believed that episode 3 there would be lots more? Fellow pilgrims, allow me to introduce you to episode 64. That's right, fellow peregrinos. Welcome to El Camino de Santiago, Pilgrims Podcast, episode 64. I can't believe we had 64 weeks apart from the week I got married, so allow me that little break. But yes, 64 episodes of El Camino de Santiago, Pilgrims Podcast. And one of the most difficult things about running a podcast is trying to find guests. And to that end, if you have walked the Camino de Santiago and you'd like to relive the time of your life on the Camino and tell your fellow pilgrims, those that are going to return, those that are going to go for the first time, if you'd like to help them plan for their Caminos and, of course, relive your own Camino experience, please send me a message via our Facebook page, which is El Camino de Santiago Pilgrims Podcast. That's Camino de Santiago Pilgrims Podcast on Facebook. Send us a personal message via there and we will surf the podcast waves together. So please get in touch. I'd love to hear from you if you have walked to the Camino. Now, it's time for this week's episode, and I got to speak to a lovely man, an ambassador for the Camino, a blogger, a 5-time pilgrim from Cork in Ireland. It's John McSweeney, and I begun by asking our guest, as always, how, why, and when he decided to walk the Camino de Santiago.
Okay, I'd say it was probably about 2001. I was out in Spain visiting a friend of mine, and he was telling me about another mutual friend of ours who was walking this thing called the Camino de Santiago at the time, which I think was the first time I'd ever heard of it. And I was working on a project at the time, which was probably going to take me 2 or 3 years to complete. And I had given up smoking the previous year, so I was become a lot healthier, and I had kind of started walking a lot more. And I heard about this Camino de Santiago. I said, that sounds very intriguing. Maybe I'll look into it a little bit more, and maybe when I'm finished this project, maybe I'll walk it myself.
What did you find intriguing about it, John?
I'd lived in Spain myself for a couple of months. I'd lived in Barcelona and I'd taught English out there for a while. And I liked the country. And when I gave up smoking, I kind of found that, all of a sudden exercise, which prior to that had been, akin to torture, or a coronavirus lockdown, was actually becoming a lot more enjoyable. And Spain was a country that I had seen little bits and pieces of, but it was a nice country, and I thought I'd like to see a little bit more of it. And the prospect of kind of walking, substantial portions of the country on foot sounded, a very good way of kind of seeing the country. And then, of course, all the other kind of usual questions that arise, like that anybody, I think, who does the Camino is seeking some sort of answers or is on a kind of a personal quest. And I thought, spending 30, 40 days on the road would be a very good way of kind of, I suppose, enhancing my own spiritual side, meeting people, seeing the world, and, seeing where the road would take me, really.
And for the listeners, I think they'd be very interested to hear all the Caminos you've walked.
Right. Well, I did the first one, which was the Camino Frances in 2004. Went all the way to Finisterre that time. The second time I did the Camino Frances again. That was in 2013. And I went to Finisterre and to Muxia and back to Santiago the second time. The third time I did the Camino Portuguese from Lisbon through to Porto, onto Santiago, and then on to Muxia and Finisterre. I didn't walk back to Santiago. I just didn't have time on that occasion. The fourth one was in 2016. I did the Camino del Norte from Irún to Santiago via the Camino Primitivo, and did the Finisterre-Muxia loop again. And then last year, in 2019, I did the Via de la Plata from Seville to Santiago and did the Finisterre-Muxia loop as well, back to Santiago again.
Wow, that's incredible, John. From being a person that was kind of had a loose or vague, weak interest in exercise to
being a person that's gone back time after time to walk the Camino. Tell me, and I'm sure the listeners are intrigued as well, what keeps bringing you back to walk the Camino time and time again?
Well, the first time it was a kind of a curiosity thing, so it was something very novel for me. And there was a certain fear factor involved as well, because, you're kind of going into the great unknown and you just don't know what you're going to encounter or how you're going to manage it along the way. But it turned out to be a thoroughly rewarding experience. It was life changing in ways that I didn't anticipate at the time. And then the second time, I think I went back because I just felt I was at a point in my life where I just kind of needed some new perspective, and I thought the Camino was the kind of the place that I would find that, and it absolutely did. Then after the second time, I kind of came to a kind of a realization that I think that being a kind of a walker, being a pilgrim, was kind of part of who I actually was. It was kind of part of my core character. So I think the Camino kind of kept drawing me back because I felt it was kind of my spiritual home. So I kept kind of going back to it because I just felt that, it was always a place to recharge. It was always a place to feel alive. It was also a great place to kind of strip away the kind of complexity of life because, yourself, you're on the road for 4 or 5 weeks. You're just living out of your backpack the whole time. You're living quite a Spartan existence, but at the same time, you want for nothing. And it's a very kind of refreshing and rewarding way of life. And one that we mightn't always have. We mightn't always have the luxury of having so simple a life in our regular existence. So I think going to the Camino is always a good way of kind of teaches you to appreciate what you've got in life too. And if nothing else, I just always enjoy a good long walk.
And obviously, you mentioned before that you were a smoker. I mean, just so the listeners can get an idea of the kind of change you made. How many cigarettes per day was it?
Well, I suppose, I wouldn't have been the heaviest of smokers a lot of the time. I might have smoked 10 or 15 cigarettes, but if I was out for a night, I might have smoked 30 or 40.
Right, wow.
Like I was only talking to my boss yesterday, who's a man like that I would have known. I stopped smoking 20 years ago last week. And at the time, his office was on the 3rd floor of a building. And I was doing a lot of my other work in another place, which wasn't very far away, but was maybe a 5-minute walk. And by the time I got from where I was over to his office and up the 3 flights of stairs, I was coughing and spluttering. And he had a water machine in his office, and I was always, have to drink several glasses of water in order to kind of compose myself. And he was always saying, "Oh, give up smoking, Max Sweeney, will you?" And I was saying like, yeah, one of these days. I was only about like 23 or 24 at the time.
Wow.
And then, through, I suppose, a certain maturity and wisdom, I did give up smoking then a few years later. And that's such a long time ago now, I kind of find it very hard to remember that time of my life. But I said to him, like, when I was mentioning that it was 20 years since I'd quit, I said, could you have imagined back then that I'd been the kind of person who would have not only done the Camino, but done it repeatedly? And he, just thought, no way. So, I mean, from somebody who would never have considered anything like this, it's now something that I couldn't possibly consider my life being without.
Would you say that the Camino has helped you cement those positive changes into your daily habits?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I decided to do it originally, I mean, this was like kind of 2004 was the year then like that I was actually going to do it. It was no longer just an aspiration. It was, something more of a plan. So I started kind of walking a lot more to kind of build up my level of physical fitness so that I'd be able to actually complete the daily stages. And, walking and maintaining a healthy lifestyle is something that I've maintained pretty much ever since. So I like to kind of go for a good walk every day if possible, certainly at weekends, and I walk a lot more. I sold my car a couple of years ago because, the places that I work are usually within walking or cycling distance of where I live. So, it absolutely has. I mean, I wouldn't have enjoyed the kind of the good health that I've had for the last levels of fitness that I've had for the last 12 or 15 years, if it hadn't been for the Camino. And the continuous kind of and the mindset that goes with it.
Yeah, it's really interesting what you say. First of all, about selling your car. I mean, I've just moved back to the UK. I've been away for quite a while. Been on
Okay.
Spanish territory for a while,
All
and we were always, my wife and I always kind of had an eye on coming back.
right.
And I've got home, and because I've got like a Spanish driver's license, my insurance quotes were completely through the roof. So I
Yeah.
thought to myself, you know what? I don't even need a car. So I've just decided not to have one, and I'm clocking up about 12 kilometers a day just by going
Yeah.
about my daily business. So if for those who are thinking of, like hacks to get Camino ready, we talked about this in last week's episode. Maybe not saying to go and sell your car, but use your car only when necessary. That's one
Absolutely.
idea. And it's interesting to hear, the benefits, the health benefits that's made for you. And I also read when I was looking into this that a car costs on average around about £400 per month,
Yeah.
um,
Right.
or euros or whatever, dollars, whatever it may
Yeah.
be. And so imagine the money you're saving kind of every month.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And, obviously when you think about the cost of insurance and et cetera, everything on top of that. So the health and financial benefits are actually, really, really, they weigh up, they stack up. So, I really like that kind of change you've made to your life as well. And
Yeah.
I think those listening and are getting ready to walk the Camino, when they will be able to again, will be able to kind of, take a lot from that. And have you got another Camino on the horizon when, for sometime soon-ish or later?
um, yeah. I mean, I have aspirations to
You're
walk.
running out of Caminos, John, aren't you?
Well, there are a couple more now. I mean, like, I'm not sure if I'm brave enough to take on the Mozarabe or the Levante just yet, but they are certainly on the list. Um, and I might do a kind of a combination of, say, micro caminos, like, do the Camino Madrid and then do the Camino Salvador and do the Camino Primitivo and do them all maybe in one go, or the Camino Aragonés and the Basque Camino, and kind of go up and down and kind of go between the Frances and the Norte and back and forth, and take a few varieties. And maybe someday, if time and circumstance allow, if I could maybe start one of the journeys from one of the places in France as well, like Arles or Le Puy. And of course, you never walk the same Camino twice. So there's nothing to stop any of us from doing any of the routes a second time. I think the next one that I will do, I would probably do the full Camino del Norte. I've walked from Irún to Santiago, but I did the Primitivo the last time, which is a beautiful, beautiful Camino. But I think I'd like to just do the other branch of the Norte as well, where it splits, just to see what that's like as well.
Okay, so were you to do the Camino del Norte in its entirety,
Mm-hmm.
imagine you're going to be packing your bag for that.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as we get off the call, what would be the three most important things you take with you, apart from the obvious, which are your backpack, your footwear, and your socks?
Yeah, I think good rain gear is very important because the Norte is along the north coast, so it can experience a lot of rain. Of course, once you get to Galicia, as they say, pray for sunshine but prepare for rain.
Yeah,
So
70
good rain.
different words for rain in Galician they have,
Oh yeah.
because there's so many different types of rain they experience.
Oh, I know, and I think I've experienced probably about 64 of them on my different Camino. um, Ranging from the horrific to the miserable to the downright biblical. So good rain gear would be something. Walking sticks are very much a kind of an essential item for me, and not just the walking sticks, but those rubber ferules that you put on the bottom of the walking sticks. They have proved to be a vital source of kind of shock absorption. When I was on the Portuguese Camino in 2005, there was a lot of road walking on the Portuguese Camino from Lisbon to Porto. And the rubber ferules that I had, I found it very difficult to actually get them anyway. I mean, I was looking in lots of different sports shops in Cork, and the ones that I did get weren't very good, and they had pretty much worn out on the first day. So I was kind of not able to use my walking sticks on an awful lot of the roads because you can't get any real grip with them. And so it's putting an awful lot more stress on your joints and on your legs than if you have if you can use your walking sticks all the time. Because for me, that kind of I can walk with my arms as much as my legs. So I think those are the walking sticks and the ferules are vitally important, and the rain gear for well, for any eventuality, but certainly for when you get to Galicia without rain gear, it's going to be even more miserable than it will be otherwise.
And what would the other thing be? Maybe a bottle opener to get your bottles of Guinness open, or
Uh,
something else? An
uh,
Irishman's got to have his priorities, right?
well, oddly enough, I don't really drink much.
Okay.
So, I have the odd occasional taste of wine when I'm on the Camino. I mean, I like to just simple things like, I mean, making sure that I have a journal, and even something as simple as a pen, because I found on one or two occasions on one of the Caminos, I just ran out of pens, and trying to find and buy pens in some of the small Spanish shops and small Spanish villages can actually be quite difficult. So just simple things like that. Oh, and a good hat. Absolutely, I'd be lost without a good hat to well, keep the sun off and keep the rain off. Without a hat, you'd get sunstroke, and God knows where you'd be after that.
Which brings me very neatly, John, onto your blog, which is beautifully written. I mean, I really feel you should be writing a book on the Camino and documenting this in something special, because you're a bit of a wordsmith, John. I'm reading this and I'm thinking, I wish I wrote this, because you get your message across, you convey your feelings really clearly and really well. And I love it. So do you want to tell the listeners the name of your Camino website, your blog?
Yeah, it's called, it's www.alifeontheway, that's ALIFEONTHEWAY, .com. And of course, life on the way is the way being the Camino. And of course, a life on the way is that we're all essentially a work in progress anyway. So, and I think that every Camino that I do and every step that's on the Caminos, it's part of a journey to self-improvement, self-fulfillment, or just finding that inner peace and that we're all looking for in all our walks of life.
John, I think you would be and you are, not would be, you are a brilliant ambassador for the Camino. Very unassuming as well. And I really like the blog post, how lessons from a pilgrimage can help us with the COVID-19 pandemic. So would you like to skim over that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote that about 6 months ago, and I'll probably try and maybe come up with something similar now again in the next couple of weeks, because here in Ireland we're heading back into lockdown tonight, and I think, well, it's pretty much the same the world over, whatever degrees of restrictions people are facing in their own respective countries. But I think the lockdown, I suppose, has kind of forced us all to it takes us out of our comfort zones, and it eliminates an awful lot of the certainties that we all experience every day. I mean, many of us have lost work, we've lost income, our social circles have been restricted, and a lot of the basic freedoms that we would have enjoyed day to day are gone temporarily anyway, and well, who knows when it's going to end. So, I mean, but it also gives us an awful lot of opportunities, because the Camino itself is a very disciplined lifestyle. I mean, you have to, you live in quite Spartan conditions. You go to bed at 10 o'clock and you get up at 6, and you walk in whatever the weather you're going to, encounter the next day is going to be. But at the same time, you have an opportunity to reflect. You have an opportunity to think. You have an opportunity to create. You meet new people. It gives you space to appreciate, some of the smaller and the subtler points of life that you mightn't get the opportunity to do if we're so kind of caught up and so busy with the normal lives that we live, be it the jobs that we have, or the family commitments. Whereas when you're on the Camino, you could be walking out in the flat plains of the Meseta for hours on end and just seeing nothing but kind of furrowed fields of wheat and stuff. But you have an opportunity to look at the texture of the earth, hear the birds in the sky. Sometimes, if I was walking through a forest in Galicia and if my mind was distracted, I might just stop and say, right, just take a moment here now and just notice 5 things, the leaves on the ground, the growth that's growing out of the walls, the texture of a tree or something like that.
Yes.
And, I think, during lockdown, we can do the same thing if we just go outside and just, go for a walk along your street and just look around, just look at the buildings that you pass every day, but just look at them in a bit more detail, things like that. And it also gives us a lot of spare time, so we can read, we can write, we can think, we can learn a language, we can learn a musical instrument, we can become better cooks. There are opportunities in that. I mean, the Camino is it's disciplined, it's simple, it's Spartan, but I mean, there's tremendous freedom in that discipline, and it's through discipline that I think we can achieve, higher goals.
Well, John, firstly, thank you for all of those words you've just said, because you've helped lift me up for sure. Because it's been a tough period for my wife and I for many, many, many different reasons. But I think that my wife and I hope so many people can identify and are in the similar situation where we hope and believe we're over the worst of what we've been through due to this whole crisis. And what you said really is actually echoed the similar thought processes I've had in the last few days, is that actually now, the UK similarly, and where I'm based in the Northwest, is going into lockdown again.
Yes.
And I was just thinking, my wife and I have a wonderful opportunity to explore our new surroundings. We've got woods all around us.
Sure, absolutely.
My knee's been giving me jip, so I've got a good chance to just focus on nothing else but rehabilitation. And my career has basically gone down the pan as a singer and entertainer because I can't do it. So I have a chance now to do something I've wanted to do forever, which is become a full-time writer. So I'm not saying this to I'm saying it to give it as an example as to how we can respond to these adversarial conditions that we find ourselves in. And I love what you said also about just taking in the 5 things around you as well. And that's why I'm a believer in having our mobile switched off on the Camino, because it's a chance to go back to factory settings and reboot.
It is, absolutely. Yeah.
And I'm really grateful for your words and what you said, and you've been a big help to me. Just I was listening there and it was kind of music to my ears. So thank you so much. It's put a bit of a smile on my face, and I'm sure it would have of many of the listeners as well. So guys, please go to alifeontheway.com. John's writing is absolutely beautiful, and I think you deserve a larger audience, John. I really, really like your writing.
Thank you very much.
I am a fan. So
thank you very much.
Could you please give me some kind of digital autograph? I love it. Really, really, really enjoyed it. I started flicking through it, because I knew we were going to talk, and I was like, actually, this guy should write a book, like most definitely. So, and if you go on, tell me.
Well, I have written a lot of my kind of Camino memoirs. I sat down to write them maybe about 2 years ago, and this was before I did the Via della Plata. But there was a lot of material there even prior to that. So I've written quite a lot, and I have written a previous book, not on the Camino. It was it's actually a history of the old cinemas in Cork. So I have certainly been intending to write something more on the Camino, maybe like a book as well. So I think you're giving me quite a good bit of inspiration there to pursue that, because like the Camino for me has been life changing, and I think I'm sure it has.
Without wanting to sound cliche, because for me it was as well, and I make no apologies for using those words.
No.
We know it's made changes to your health. You said some spiritual, but can you go into more detail as to why? And maybe your words could inspire others that are sitting on the fence to go.
Well, I mean, I have met people on the Camino who have, seen me through some of my darkest days. I met somebody on my first Camino in 2004, lovely American lady who I had a brief romance with, not on the Camino, actually, several years later, but she came into my life several years after the Camino at a time when I was at a very, very low ebb, and, brought sunshine into my life at a time when I just thought there was no hope left. And that was a gift of the Camino, whether it's because of some higher power that's intervening, or whether it's just a collection of chances that we want to ascribe a higher power to. I don't think that really, whichever interpretation you take, I don't think it makes much difference, because the ultimate upshot of it is that, it has that amazing kind of transformative power. And over the next couple of years, my life twisted and turned in different ways. Some good, some bad. I mean, all life is going to be a bit of a roller coaster. But when it came to 2013, I was also at a point where I felt, well, I need to kind of go back to the well and see where it's going to take me the second time. And
when you say the you mean the Camino, right?
I mean the Camino, yeah.
Yeah.
And it basically, I kind of found a new family the second time. And I know we all talk about the Camino families and the people that, that share the 4 or 5 weeks that we spend actually on the road. But these people have become family outside and beyond the Camino now. And I've spent Christmas with these people
Wow.
They live in Denmark. And I spent Christmas with them for the last 7 years. So, I mean, these people have brought me into their home as one of their own. And it's been absolutely remarkable. They're wonderful, wonderful people. And I think, it's the people that you meet along the way. And if you go onto the Camino in a kind of, in a state of openness, and, just appreciate that everybody else who's on the journey, they have their own reasons for being there. They have their own stories to tell. And, you'll make connections. I mean, I've made friends with people and I've remained friends with people on social media, but people who I may have only kind of met over a dinner one night, and we've kind of kept in contact, for a couple of years afterwards. Some of them have passed through Cork then a few years later and came to my house for dinner. Other people, like people I met on the Via della Plata last year, I met them the first day, but we were going at slightly different paces. So I bumped into them again 2 or 3 weeks later, but we're still in touch through Facebook. And then there are people like, that, as I said, they've become like family to me, in the very real sense of what a family are. Like, people who are, who give you your strength and your support and your, the friendship that we all need to travel through life. So, I mean, in those ways, it saved me. And I think
Beautiful.
In a very personal sense, and, physically, it's done me no end of good as well.
So the heartfelt connections you've made have kind of lasted, created lifetime friendships.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, if I look through my kind of the list of people I know on Facebook, like a good portion of them are people that I've met on the Camino, and they're like, some of them I will see again, some of them I will visit, and some of them will visit me. And there've been people who have visited my house from Denmark, from Canada, from America, from Poland, from New Zealand, and I've visited people in lots of these countries as well. Some, I may never meet again face to face, but the connection will always be there. And of course, we have the benefits of social media now to keep us in contact with people, on all corners of the globe.
Yeah, your Camino family.
Yeah, and it's the gift that keeps on giving, because you just never know when you might need to reach out to one of these people, or one of these people might need to reach out to you, and can just offer a few words of advice or help or friendship. Or even like a couple of years ago, I decided I was going to go to Nepal and travel around there for a couple of weeks, and I was just looking for anybody who had any information. There was a friend of mine from one of the Caminos said that he had been to Nepal, and he gave me a contact that he had in Kathmandu, and I was able to get a guide for my trek around Nepal then through him. So, in all sorts of little ways, it's kind of like, you throw a rock into a pond and the ripples kind of spread out in all directions. When you step on the Camino, the experiences are going to be many and varied, and they're going to keep on influencing us for a very long time. I just want to make what was that.
So just before one thing, John, but those kind of analogies are why I really like your writing. Really effective analogies. Yeah, really, really nice.
Thank you. I'm delighted that you enjoy you've enjoyed it, and I hope that that you get benefit from it, and others who might come and visit my website, that they might do likewise.
Sure. John, just want to talk about a few of the practicalities. So just because a lot of the listeners will be listening to the podcast because they're sometimes first-time pilgrims or just kind of returning pilgrims looking to refine their routines and learn from others. So a mistake you made at the start on your first Camino, for example, or something you do differently were you to go again, or you did differently in your subsequent Caminos?
I see. spent a lot of time preparing and planning for it. So by the time I actually got there and got started, I was in I was in the right frame of mind and I was in the right kind of physical shape. So I don't know that there were any kind of mistakes that I made that I would look back and say I'd do things particularly differently. Because when I did it the second time, I did it much the same as I did it the first time. If I was to do the Française again, I probably would I would probably start in Saint Jean. That's the only thing that I sometimes feel. Nah, did I do the full Française by starting in Roncesvalles? Um, but I don't think that there were any kind of mistakes because I felt, once I kind of got out there and started walking, I thought everything pretty much had fallen into place. If anything, I kind of worried maybe a lot. Certainly the first time I anticipated all the things that could go wrong. I mean, I'm a natural worrier. But I think, if I was to do any of these things, it's like, there's no real need to worry because the worst that can happen is never that bad and nothing ever really goes that wrong either. So I would say to anything, if you're if you want to do the Camino, just, okay, make the necessary preparations and then just go with it.
So one thing you do differently is you just kind of remind yourself that the worst case scenario isn't actually that bad. And I think that's a good piece of advice actually, because there may be some people that have got, or that are warriors and they have different reasons that they're scared of doing the Camino. I know mine was when I first went that I didn't speak the language and that I didn't know where I was going to end up staying every night. But in the end, you do find out that there's places to stay quite frequently along the way, especially on the Camino Frances. So you try and make a kind of conscious effort to leave your worries behind.
Yeah, the universe provides. I mean, it always does. I mean, anytime, like I often find, like, there's so many times, like when I said, oh, I've just run out of water, like, where am I going to get water? And then you just turn a corner, like, and there's a water fountain, or, you're looking for something to eat and, or you're looking for a shop and, the shop is, it just happens to be where you're looking for it. Or there have been so many occasions like that, like, where it gives you exactly what you need when you need it. And so I think, just don't worry too much because, the universe will provide. It always does.
The universe provides. Not only the Camino provides, but the universe provides. And I think that's a lesson we can take from the Camino to our everyday life. As long as we're alert to the signs and signals that are taking us down the right path. I sound like I'm kind of talking like I'm a character in The Alchemist, about Paulo Coelho, but those messages have lived with me ever since I read that book, and I really believe it to be true. And I'd like to maybe quiz you a bit more about those kind of universe providing episodes, maybe when we get a little story out of you towards the end of the podcast. But for now, I'd like to ask you very quickly just about your kind of your foot care, kind of body care routines, and what you did because you sound like you are a seasoned pilgrim now. 5 Caminos to your name. So what are your body care and foot care kind of routines?
Well, first of all, obviously a good pair of boots. I mean, and purchase quality. I mean, I've been wearing Echo boots a lot of the time, not all the time, but they're a very good brand. I'd always wear 2 pairs of socks, and
Why?
Have them well worn in.
Why 2 pairs?
Because it reduces kind of friction, and it kind of gives you more kind of cushioning within the boot itself. And other than that, I suppose, if you get blisters, I suppose you have to go through the fairly unpleasant procedures of bursting them and stuff like that. Unfortunately, I haven't had too many. I mean, there are a few here and there, but some people are crippled with them, but I haven't. I've been fairly fortunate. And, just bring the usual kind of good supplies of Compeed and, plasters and cotton wool and stuff like that. And just to make sure that, if you do have blisters, to patch them up well so that you can carry on the next day.
As soon as you feel those hot spots as well, don't wait until you get to the next albergue or whatever. Wait until you get those hot spots sorted out as soon as you feel them. That's the advice. Luke tape or hiker's wall, put those on them, and that should clear it up quicker than if you don't do that. So I know you've walked 5 Caminos: the Camino Frances, the Camino Portugués, the Camino del Norte with the Primitivo, the Via de la Plata. And I'm going to put you on the spot now and ask you to recommend your favorite albergue.
I was thinking about that actually when you sent me on the question there. I like the Avenue, is it Avenue Felix in Via Franca del Bierzo? It's on the Frances. It's just probably the last town you come to before you get to Galicia. It's a lovely kind of town, kind of nestled in the mountains. It seems very kind of un-Spanish. The town, I don't know, it kind of has more of a kind of an alpine feel to it or something like that. You can really feel you're in Spain. And I like on the first Camino, it was a place where I met that very special person. And then it's just kind of, it has a kind of, like in the guidebook that I had for the first Camino, it was a place that was recommended. And then I was back there then 9 years later with an entirely new group of people, not trying to kind of recapture the experience of the first time, but just to kind of stay in a place that was quite nice. So that was one that I would always recommend. There was also a place in a town called Boadillo del Camino. It's in the Meseta. You know it?
I do,
And it's kind of got a large kind of courtyard. There's a small little swimming pool inside there. That's a beautiful, beautiful place as well.
That was actually recommended by my first ever podcast guest, that place in Boadillo del Camino. Really? Yeah, and the other place you mentioned is the Albergue Avenida Phoenix, so Fenix, and that's in Via Franca del Bierzo, which, as John said, is like a kind of more of a town that will be more at home at the foot of the Swiss Alps than you'd think it would be in Spain. And that brings me neatly on to the next question, John, because you mentioned earlier on the wine, and I know that the wine from that region is really famous as well. So maybe would it be a food or wine or drink or something you'd recommend people try along the way?
I absolutely love Tarta de Santiago.
Okay,
only a specialty that you can get in Galicia, but I love getting to Galicia because, like, once it comes to the postre, you get more than the usual kind of flan, yogurt, natillas, halado, and stuff like that. Tarta de Santiago is like, Tarta de Santiago, that's lovely. And the caldo gallego that they serve.
They'd be rude not to.
Pardon?
It would be rude not to.
Yes, absolutely. You know, it's I love that cake, and the caldo gallego. You know, the kind of bean and cabbage and sausage kind of soup stew that you get in and around kind of Galicia and maybe in Cantabria and Asturias as well. That's also very good and very nutritious.
Yeah, definitely. The Tarta Santiago, which is translates as the Santiago cake, which, as John said, is one of the most famous postres, the desserts. And I mean, absolutely. The caldo gallego is really, really nice on winter caminos. My wife and I have done as well. A cold day you get in, you have the caldo gallego. And it's, really, really nice. So give those a try along the way. Okay, going to put you on the spot once again. Favorite town, city, village, perhaps a hidden gem or must see along the way? You can choose one. It's got to be, you can only choose one from all of your 5.
Oh, wow.
Tricky, I know.
But... Well, okay. I can think of quite a few. All right. I'll take one from the Frances again. And that's a town called Calzadilla de los Hermanos. It's a little kind of dusty little village. It's about 2 days walk from Leon, so it's in the wilds of the Meseta, and it's kind of looking out, looking north across the kind of the flat plains, and you can see the Cordillera Cantabrica mountains in the distance. And it's a town really where you'd expect to see kind of tumbleweeds breezing through the streets. But I stayed there it's the Camino at that particular point, it kind of branches in 2, just outside Sahagún. So you can take the North Road or the South Road. They're probably, I don't know, they're only probably about maybe 15, 20 kilometers each, but they're slightly different paths. And I've taken that path on. I took the first time just because I think I just wanted to go kind of a longer walk that day, and I kind of stumbled across this town, which I thought was really nice. And then I went back there the second time when I did it in 2013, and all my Camino associates went there on my recommendation as well. And it was kind of in the middle of October, where if you were in the sun, it was quite warm, but as soon as you got into the shade, it was actually quite cold. But it was a kind of a Monday afternoon, and there were 7 or 8 of us, and we were just sitting on a footpath, just maybe a block away from the albergue. There's no traffic or anything like that. There's maybe a few cars in the town and a few people passing by. I mean, they see pilgrims passing through every day, so they don't pay a whole lot of attention to us. But we were just sitting on a footpath, just relaxing, chilling, talking, philosophizing, laughing, joking, and in a town where it has really no distinguishing features, certainly no tourist attractions, nothing of that nature. But I felt, we could have been in the center of the universe.
It's a really, really, really quirky, unique choice, that one, John, and I really like it. So just let me kind of decipher that for the listeners, because it's not the easiest word to say if you're not, or read if you're not a Spanish speaker. It says Calzadilla de los Hermanillos.
Yeah.
And if you're an English speaker, I guess it would read as Calzadilla de los Hermanillos. So you put in the Y where the two double L's are. Calzadilla de los Hermanillos. Okay, look that up, everybody. It is. It's funny because I remember that town stands out for me because it really is like, just the middle of nowhere, isn't it? But I just remember being there I'd got there around sunrise. I got to that town and I stopped and had a break, and I just remember sitting down on a bench, which felt like the loneliest bench in the whole world. And this bench was looking out across the plains. And I just remember thinking to myself, this is just such a crazy place to be at this time of the morning. I would never, ever be in a place like this at this time of the morning at any other point in my life, apart from being on the Camino. And it's just one of those unique moments and memories. And just that stands out, strangely. I don't know why that moment stands out particularly, but yeah. So and really interesting choice that you made there. So a hidden gem right there, everybody. Calzadilla de los Hermanillos. Good stuff. Yeah. Okay. I don't know if you can recommend a specific restaurant, cafe, or bar, or somewhere along the way where the food or the drink may have knocked your socks off. Don't know if anywhere stands out, a particular establishment.
There are a few actually. There was a place on the Via della Plata last year. It was in a small little town called Rio Negro. It's in Castilla y Leon. It's hard to describe exactly where it is. It's probably about 4 or 5 days from the small city of Zamora. It's actually not too far from the border with Galicia, but it's still probably nearly 100 kilometers. And there's a restaurant there called Me Gusta Comer, which I believe translates as I like eating. And there's a chef there who prepares the food, especially for pilgrims, because it's a town where there wouldn't be a lot of other passing trade. But it's kind of a set menu, so he just brings you out the different courses one at a time. And the food there is really, really excellent. And he makes his own bread and different kind of, starters and main courses and tapas and stuff like that. And it's really, really good. I think I remember being in a restaurant in that lovely little mountain village of El Acebo, where the food was excellent up there.
El Acebo, yeah, I stayed there as well. And is it the restaurant that's got an albergue as well, kind of on the side of it?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, and I think like the first time I was passing through there was actually a vegetarian restaurant just around the corner. I'm not sure if it's still there, but I remember eating there the first time, and they had a kind of an outdoor kind of patio, and you're just kind of looking down at the mountains, and you could see Ponferrada in the distance, and I mean the scenery was just absolutely spectacular, and the food was excellent as well.
Yeah, that's on the
I'm not sure if
descent.
that restaurant.
Yeah, that's on the descent from Cruz
Yes,
de Ferro, isn't it? If I'm not mistaken.
yes, yes,
So me gusta
yes,
comer, which means I like eating or I like
yes,
to eat, in Rio Negro del
yes,
Puente, Rio
yes.
Negro del Puente. Okay, so TripAdvisor, that's got
That's correct.
188 reviews and 4.5 out of 5. So great
Yeah,
recommendation there. Okay,
pretty
John,
well
we're going
done.
to do what we call the quick fire round, the Camino quickies. So I am going to
Okay,
quiz you on various different Camino things, and you're going to fire back at me short, sharp, quick answers, and then we'll get through to the next question. Okay.
okay.
All right. So, your favorite Camino blog or book?
I think, well, I'd have to say probably the guidebook that I brought with me on the first one. It was by people called it was, I think, was it Bethan Cole, and I can't remember the name of the other person who wrote it. But it was an excellent guide to the Camino. It's a factual guide, but had loads and loads of history and nature and tourist attractions and all the information that you could possibly want. An excellent piece of work.
Okay. Perhaps a forum or internet forum or Facebook group.
I probably don't use a whole lot of them. I mean, I've been on a few Facebook groups and stuff like that. There's more recently, I've had a lot of interaction with the one on the Via della Plata, which is moderated by Gerald Kelly, who has written one of the guidebooks on the Via della Plata. So for anybody who is doing that particular one, that's an excellent one as well.
Favorite Camino vlog and or film?
Vlog and or film. I probably haven't seen too many, to be perfectly honest. So I'd probably have to pass on that one.
We'll point people to the way. So 6 Ways to Santiago. That's another one. I think
Yeah,
you may be.
not the market for the
This might be useless, this question, because it sounds like you were well prepared. But one thing you wished you'd packed, maybe on your first one.
One thing I wish I'd packed, probably rain pants.
Okay.
You know,
Yep.
yeah,
One
and I
thing.
didn't have those on the second one either.
Okay, so you
Yep.
definitely take them with you again. One thing you didn't need
Yep.
and wouldn't take again.
Um, Sometimes I just maybe bring too many t-shirts or too many kind of changes of clothes and things like that. I think like most of what I have is pretty essential. So I think maybe if anything, I just kind of maybe cut down on some of the volume of material. 3 t-shirts are probably plenty instead of 4 or 5 that I might have brought the first time. And certainly there might be certain items that I might have brought, kind of cotton shirts or something like that, when kind of a more synthetic fiber would be lighter and easier to wash and more manageable.
Yeah, quick drying is definitely the way to go, and it normally weighs less as well. So,
It does, yeah.
what for you is the hardest part of the Camino?
Well, I suppose some of it can be the weather, really. I mean, if you have to walk in rain, can be particularly challenging. I know that certainly my most difficult and certainly maybe my most memorable day, certainly the most difficult day of walking that I've had, but possibly in some respects one of the best days of walking, was a day in Galicia on the Camino Finisterre 7 years ago. It was in October. It was kind of this time of year, actually. It would have been this week. And I was walking from the town of Negrera to Alvaroa, which is a long stretch. It's about 33 kilometers or more. And the rain that day was brutal. I mean, it was a level of apocalyptic rain, the likes of which I could never have imagined. I mean, and I'm Irish. We get, rains 400 days a year over here. And it got to a point like where, and it's a long kind of, I was kind of on a time schedule because I had to I was planning on walking to Finisterre, Muxia, back to Santiago, and then I had a train out of Santiago the next day. So if I kind of cut short any particular day, then it was quite unlikely that I wouldn't actually get to finish the whole walk. So I just basically had to keep on walking. But there was one particular part where I was just walking along a kind of a country road. It was a regular road, very little traffic on it. But there was a part in the road where it was just completely flooded. and there was no way around it except to walk through it. So I had to do that, and the water came in over the top of my boots, but at that stage it didn't matter because everything I had with me was completely soaked. But I got through it in the end, and I mean, it was the most difficult day that I probably walked, but in some respects, looking back, I'd say it was probably one of the best days too, because if you can get through something like that, then you can get through anything.
A quote or some meditations for the hard times on the road? Like a mantra, perhaps.
Just keep on going. Keep on going. I would sell myself like soldier on, cowboy. I know there's a bit of a contradiction there, but because you're using two kind of job descriptions, but keep on going. Whatever the weather, walk on. Whatever the circumstances, walk on. Keep on walking. Never give up. Never stop. Don't think about stopping. If you need to take a break, take a break. If you need to stop and have something to eat, if you need to have a rest, that's fine. But just keep on going. Never say never. And, just keep on persevering, because you'll always get to where you're going and things will always work out. But you just have to keep soldiering on.
Stay low, keep pedaling. That's what I've always remembered from like a cyclist on the Tour de France. Stay low, keep pedaling. And that's what I've always kind of, that's been the thing that's kind of, I love what you said. Was it soldier on, cowboy? That really made me chuckle, John.
Soldier on, cowboy.
Really, really made me chuckle. Thanks for that. Okay. Lastly, in the quick fire stroke kind of slow fire round, a guilty pleasure you carried with you?
Chocolate, lots of chocolate.
Oh yeah.
And those wonderful donuts that they make in Spain as well. The kind of the chocolate donuts that they come in packs of 4 or 5.
Oh, they're dangerous.
And you can get those fresh. Oh, they are, aren't they?
Yeah, and the churros.
But if you're walking 25, pardon?
The churros.
Churros, yeah. I've only had churros a couple of times, would you believe? Even though I spent quite a lot of time in Spain. One time, actually, I was just waiting outside an albergue, and there was a guy walked past who had been the hospitalero in the previous albergue, and he had some churros, and he offered me some. And other than that, I don't think I actually sat down and properly had churros con chocolate, until I was actually in Madrid last November when I just finished the last Via de la Plata. I said, for all the time I've been in Spain, I said, like, I can't leave Spain this time without just going into a regular cafe and anywhere in Spain and just having some churros and chocolate, because yes, it's very, very good.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you know what? I didn't find this like in every single province in Spain, but I certainly found in Galicia and also in the Camino Portugués, from kind of after Porto, should I say, is this like the hot chocolate that's so dense and thick. It's almost like a porridge, but it's absolute, like a mousse. But you can kind of even eat it by the spoon. But it is. I don't have a sweet tooth at all. But those are the kind of things that just you kind of indulge in because you're on holiday. Just to do so, you're on an adventure, so you do something different. So find that hot chocolate as well. It is absolutely amazing. So yeah, chocolate. And I always find like if I am going to do anything, it's like I like to go for the dark Kinder Bueno as well as like a little sweet treat if you're going to have one.
Oh, right, okay.
But yeah, what was your choice of chocolate? Just the donuts.
I'll probably just regular kind of Nestle or whatever you could get in the local shop, like
Yeah, the crunch bar.
But oh yeah, they're very good too. I also like the dark chocolate is kind of the slightly healthier chocolate. The crunch one, they're very good. They were only for special occasions, really. If I was being particularly naughty.
John, we like to kind of move towards the end of the podcast by talking about an outstanding memory, an outstanding encounter that embodies everything that's good about the Camino. Could be characters you met, could be an unforgettable experience like the day where you had to wade through the water in between Negrera and Olvaroa. So yeah, see if you can recall one of those moments.
Well, there are absolutely hundreds and thousands of them, really, as I'm sure you can appreciate. Well, I'll just give you a slightly different one now from maybe some of the other ones, because I've had so many memorable experiences with the people that I've met. the people that I've, walked entire Caminos with are people that I just might have casually encountered and met over lunch or something like that. But there's a lot of dogs along the Camino that I have. I like dogs, and you'll meet a lot of local dogs along the way. Some of them will bark at you, and some of them will, wag their tail, and some of them will, follow you on a portion of your journey. But and I took collections of photographs of some of the dogs that I met when I was on the Française in 2013. And there was one dog that I encountered on the last day, just as I was coming from Santiago, just coming back to Santiago from Negrera. So I took his photograph and, just spent a moment or two with him. And then when I was on the Portuguese Camino a year and a half later, I encountered the same dog, and I was delighted to see him again. And then it was about another year and a half after that, I was on the Norte, and I was walking to Finisterre, and I was passing the house where he lived, and I didn't see any sign of him, and I was kind of quite disappointed. But then I was walking back that way then, like a week later, and this house, it's about maybe 10 kilometers outside Santiago. And it was my very last day on the Camino, and I was walking past the house, and he was in the garden. And he came bounding over to me, and I kind of got the sense, maybe he actually remembers me now, And this was the third time I had met him in as many years. When I was passing the same way last year when I was doing the Via della Plata, and I didn't see him there. Now, it was raining on the two occasions that I passed, and I noticed that there was a dog bowl in the porch of the house. So I said, well, I'm sure he's there. He's just probably inside, just, staying out of the rain. But I often feel that the Camino, it has millions of different stories, but maybe it doesn't have a lot of memories of the people who pass by. But then, I kind of sense maybe that dog actually does remember me. So maybe it does have some memories.
It's a nice way to crown the podcast as well, because the impression that we take from the Camino, it's nice to think that we might leave our own impressions on the Camino, whether it be the people, whether it be the animals as well. Dogs are very intuitive animals, more so than we are.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they remember the feeling and the energy, and and I say, why not? Why wouldn't they? Why not?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Yeah, it's a nice thought. And you've obviously made the transition back to everyday life many times, and it sounds like you've incorporated various aspects of Camino life into your daily life. Now, one of my most difficult things after my first Camino was integrating back into, shall we say, quote unquote, civilian life from being a pilgrim. So I don't think this should be this shouldn't be underestimated. This transition, this question, this issue. We shouldn't get complacent with it, because it can affect you in good ways. And I know, in actual fact, the year I had after my first Camino was, apart from this year, which has been the most difficult year of my life, that was the most difficult year of my life until then. So how can you advise people to make that transition and the road not so rocky?
Yeah, I think the first time when I finished, I stayed in Spain for about another 10 days. I actually went from Seville from Santiago down to Seville, and I spent a week in Andalusia. And so I was able to kind of relax down there, because everybody I met on the Camino was saying, every Spanish person I met was saying, oh, if you're going to, spend more time in Spain, go down south. And so I took their advice, and, Andalusia is beautiful. There's so many, magnificent places to see down there. So I was able to kind of relax and unwind a little bit. And then I went back to Barcelona before I flew back to Ireland. I knew Barcelona pretty well because I'd lived there for a few months. So I kind of felt I was kind of coming home before I was going home. But I think the next year, when I look back on it, it was kind of a rocky enough year as well, because I was kind of coming back and not a lot of the projects that I had been working on had been finished at that stage. Then I had done the Camino. And so, I mean, it took me, I suppose, a while to kind of find my feet after that point. Some of the other Caminos I think I've incorporated into my life to the point where I feel I'm kind of always on the Camino, even if I'm not actually physically walking it. So, I mean, I've often just, finished the Camino, on Tuesday or Wednesday, maybe been back at work the following Monday. But I think sometimes, for me, it can actually take a long time to process it. It could take a year to process it. It could take 5 years to process it. And sometimes maybe I do rush it as well. And maybe you do need to take maybe more time to kind of to assess where you are in the world, because of course you come back, you're maybe a 7-day wonder with the people that and they say like, oh yeah, how'd you get on? And you tell them a couple of stories, and then after a couple of days they've kind of said, all right, okay, I've heard enough of your Camino stories, whereas the experience that you've had has been life-changing. So I suppose maybe just try and kind of find spaces where you can still have that the kind of the quietness, the solitude, and if nothing else, just keep on walking, because once you kind of maintain that rhythm anyway, you'll maintain the kind of the physical and spiritual energy that'll propel you through life.
I really like that. And one of the things I've like incorporated as well is like the idea of doing one thing at a time. Like, because I find that's what I tend to do on the Camino, because I have my phone switched off, because I guess trying to multitask could end up with me losing something important, like my passport or my money or something like that. So I don't know, something as simple as like making my sandwich in the kitchen of the albergue. It becomes a bit of an experience, an exercise of mindfulness in a way.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Kind of subliminally, even if you don't know you're doing it, that's what you're doing. And I found incorporating those moments as much as possible into my daily life, and I think you find so much power and peace, and strangely satisfaction and fulfillment in just doing that. Is the Camino is the power is in its simplicity, I think.
Absolutely,
So just trying to incorporate some of the simplicity of the Camino into everyday life. And John, you're so experienced on the Camino. I think you make it, like I said before, you make a wonderful ambassador. I think the Camino de Santiago genre, I think it's crying out for a book from someone like yourself. You've got the talent, you've got the turn of phrase, you're able to apply such beautiful analogies that we can all relate to when we're walking along the road. When you said about the ripples in the lake, you just remind me of you remind me of that lake near Logroño in the park where you walk around. That what you said there just reminded me of that morning. I was like, so I think please do, when you get the time and space to put something between the covers of a book, please. And I think that makes you well qualified to maybe give one piece of advice, for anyone that's going to walk the Camino. If you had to give one piece of advice.
If I have one piece of advice, I would say do it, fear nothing, and walk it in a spirit of openness and friendship, because what you will find there will transform you in ways that you can imagine and in ways that you can't. And it will take you to places both around the world and inside yourself that you never thought you'd get to. And you will never regret it for an instant.
Beautiful. Now, John, I think we've come to the point where I'm going to let you get into the Irish night and relax. And my dog Pearl, since you like dogs, my dog Pearl is looking at me like she's demanding to be taken out to go and sniff some trees. So, John, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and I've really enjoyed the chat.
Thank you very much for having me on, Bradley. I really appreciate it.
No, honestly, the hardest part of the podcast for me is finding guests. And I'm so lucky to find a guest like yourself that's walked so many, that he has such a beautiful way with words for the Camino, and we're kindred spirits. We've definitely followed in each other's footsteps. I hope we keep in touch, and just
absolutely.
Good luck for the Irish lockdown. Hopefully, it will be over by Christmas, and you can be with your friends and your family again.
I know.
Thank you for your words, your inspiring words, about actually taking this as an opportunity. I have really, really, really got a lot out of this personally. And
Delighted to hear that,
it's
Bradley.
really nice that I was thinking those ways today, and my thinking is, turned around from feeling quite down and negative to actually, looking towards a more positive horizon. And you've really, really helped me do that as well. So you've made the sunshine a bit more on my horizon. I'm sure you will have done for the listeners. For that, I just want to say thanks.
Oh,
And
I'm delighted to hear that.
no, I
Uh,
really have, John. I've really, really, really appreciate your words and your good positive energy. It's been really, really nice. And maybe you're going to be the next Irish Tony Robbins. Who knows?
oh, well,
If not, you should think about that as well. And
I
just
certainly will. Yeah, thank you very much.
no, you're a
It's
good
something to
soul,
aspire to.
good soul, John. Good soul. Really, really lucky to have crossed paths with you over these radio waves. So, gonna wish you buen camino ultria for if you do make it back to the norte. And yeah, that's it. Keep in touch.
And likewise, thank you very much for having me on, Bradley. I really appreciate it, and you're doing great work there. And keep it up. And the more there's so much. There's so many good messages that we can, like, from the Camino, that we can transmit to people. And I think now more than ever, even though we can't physically walk it now, we can still transmit a lot of the kind of the sentiments of the Camino to our fellow pilgrims and to others who might aspire to it, or just aspire to it, from the comfort of their own home if they don't have the opportunity to do so themselves. So just thank you very much for having me on your podcast, and I've really enjoyed having this conversation. It's always good to talk to a fellow pilgrim, and I wish you well with everything you're doing.
Likewise. Thanks for making me smile, John.